All right, and I see we have a question in here. And as for audio, I just want to make sure that everybody can go ahead and hear me. And so right now our attendees are going to be on mute, and it's just while we're going through the presentation, and there will be a question and answer moving forward. But can you guys hear me right now? Julie, are you able to hear me? Yeah. Okay, awesome. So we can go in, we have audio, and it looks like we have everyone in currently, or most in. We might be missing a few stragglers, but we're actually going to go ahead and get started here. And so you guys should be able to go ahead and see my screen here. And this is just a little agenda of what we're going to be going over. So we're going to be creating some inventory. Under advanced inventory, we're going to be talking about a few aspects of inventory, such as non-inventory items. Of course, we're going to be going through our purchase orders, and we're going to wrap it all up with our receiving, and that's going to be part, or that first section of that purchasing and receiving. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and finish up with clean house and just a little bit of maintenance. All right, and let's go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, and so in Retail Pro V9, mine might look a little bit different from you guys, but ultimately it's going to go ahead and be the same. We just want to get into our inventory. For anything related to our inventory, of course. For right now, I'm actually going to jump into our departments first, just to kind of keep us down the correct path. And so we're going to go ahead and jump into departments. And so making a new department is very easy. And so within my department, you can see I only have a few here. This is just my training machine. I'm going to go ahead and hit new here. And so really the only things that are required is going to go ahead and be that we at least have a department. In Retail Pro, we have a 3-tiered department structure. And each tier can have a code of up to 3 characters to give us a total of a 9-digit DCS code. And so here we can go ahead and put our department in. And so let's just say this is going to be a men's department. So if it's caps lock, some data consistency. All right, so men, department name is going to be men's. It can definitely be the same. The department name is essentially just your long name. Class, let's just say that we're going to go ahead and do shirts here, or top. And our subclass, I'm going to go ahead and call it DRS, as in dress. So our dress top, or nicer wear. You can see I'm not very creative with these, but ultimately I just want to go ahead and show you what this is going to look like down here. So we have our DCS name and then our DCS code there. So I've decided to go ahead and utilize all 3 characters and all 3 levels. But of course we do not have to. We could definitely just end this at men's tops if we have maybe just a very limited amount of tops. We do offer them at our store. The other thing I wanted to go ahead and point out over here is we have something called an allocation pattern. So you're going to see this more in a multi-store environment. And an allocation pattern, we can set this up for the entire DCS. And essentially what that's going to do is allow us to go ahead and say, for every 1 I'm sending to this store, I need 2 to this other store. And that's just because this my second store is, I know it's twice as busy. And so that's something that can help streamline the process for people later on down the line. The other thing we have available is our use quantity decimals. So of course that's going to be for those items that we perhaps sell in a smaller quantity than what we actually purchase it in. So like fabric is a good example of that. Over here under tax, we can go ahead and set a default tax category for every item within this department. And so I'm going to go ahead and leave that at taxable. Right here in California, my clothes are taxable. And so we can also set up a default margin, markup, or coefficient. And all of these items are tied together. And you can enter one, and Retail Pro is going to calculate the others for you based on that one. So if this department, I wanted to hit at least a 65% margin, it'll go ahead and I just arrow down to get into my next field, and you see that is about a 185% markup, or a 2.86% coefficient. Of course, if I don't really like that, if I wanted just to say, never mind, give me a flat out 200% markup, it'll go ahead and back calculate that margin and that new coefficient. And then the only other thing to kind of mention in here is our department profile. As you can see, this is going to be where we can get that statistical information on the department. Of course, creating a new department, we're not going to really have any statistical information. So I'm not going to go too far into it, but I just want to go ahead and point out what it was. And so from here, I can just go ahead and hit save. And now that is going to be part of my departments here that I can go ahead and select from when I'm creating inventory. All right. And next up, I'm going to go over to my vouchers. Oh, excuse me, I believe I said vouchers. That's actually my vendors. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit new here. Sorry about that. So let's try that one more time. We're actually going to go into vendors. And here I have a few again. And so these are set up. Again, they're really generic. I'm going to go ahead and open this up into form view. And you can see all you really need is your vendor code and your vendor name for this. I'm actually going to hit new. You do have options to enter a lot more information. You know, if you do have your rep contact information, just to make yourself, just to make it a little bit easier for yourself later on down the line. Of course, if you have the information, throw it in. Really important is going to be if you have an account number, default terms, payment terms. This is extremely helpful if you do have payment terms. Then you don't have to remember to go ahead and add it to every PO or every voucher. It's automatically going to go ahead and be set there for you. And so let's say for this new vendor, they're going to go ahead and maybe we don't have full terms. We can just go ahead and leave it at that net 30. Okay. And come back over here. You see when I click off of it, it just automatically changes that to net and 30. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK there. Trade discount. If we do offer trade, if we do get a trade discount from this vendor, we can go ahead and put that there. And then, of course, if they have any additional currencies that we need to go ahead and consider. We can enter a lead time if we have a set lead time. But other than that, just that new vendor code. And I'm going to go ahead and call it AAA. AAA vendor. So we can go ahead and hit save there. Too good to be true. Say triple B. Almost just as good. All right. And so for this one, we do have actually 6 available fields for us to use. So the 3 for BBB and the next 3. But of course, you don't have to go ahead and use that. We'll just hit save there. And there we go. We have that new vendor all set up and ready to go ahead and be attached to new inventory. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and jump back into my inventory. And so the reason why I went through creating at least one department and one vendor is that in order to create new inventory, they do need to have a department and they need to have a vendor. So those ones need to be set up either beforehand. You can also set it up on the fly while you're making those new items. I'm just going to go ahead and hit new here. And so there we go. We have that DCS code. Using these 3 little dots, it's going to open up that back door into my department. And I can select from my list or, of course, hit new and create that brand new one. I'm just going to go ahead and use the one that we created. Vendor code, exact same. We can create a new one on the fly or select one that we already have created. All right. From there, in my system, I am basing my styles off of DCS, vendor code, and description 1. So description 1 is going to be very important for me. There are other ways to set up a style. So you might be looking at description 1 and description 2, or just description 2. So based on that, you might have slightly different requirements as to which descriptions absolutely need to be filled out and which ones can be blank. But for me, I do need a description 1. So if I just say SS for short sleeve, I don't know if there's actually short sleeve dress shirts, but there we go. Dress shirt, and then size is going to be medium. As many of you may know, if we do have an item like a shirt that's going to come in multiple sizes and colors, we can go ahead and create this via a style. We can use style view to do that. For this, like I said, we're just creating the single item. Maybe it's just a smaller store. I only have this one. All right, attribute. Let's go ahead and just do LUE. I have a little bit of data inconsistency in mine. You'll see BLU, BLUE around. Usually best to try to go ahead and select something and stick to it. All right, so there we go. I put in that $10, and I did have a default margin for that particular department, so I just arrowed down, and it calculated that cost or that price for me based on that default margin that was assigned to my department. Other than that, my ALU is going to be system generated, so I don't need to do anything with that. That's why it's going to say system here for a little bit. And now I can go ahead and save this, and I have my new inventory item. All right. The other thing I want to go ahead and kind of talk a little bit about is, excuse me. So I already kind of mentioned styles. And of course, what we're seeing here is our item view, our item list view to be more specific. And then we have our item form view here. And our item form view is going to give us access to these additional tables that cannot be displayed in list view. And so again, the important part to remember is this is item level, item based. We also have our style view here. A little slow. There we go. Okay, and so again, that style view is going to go ahead and drop me into the list view, but for my style, and that's going to go ahead and give me access to my style grid. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into form view. It's a little bit more familiar for some people, and personally, I do enjoy using form view most of the time. I think it gives me access to more information. Especially if you're coming from V8 though. V8 users are probably more used to using that list view, so I apologize if this looks a little bit different. But, you know, I'm a little faster at this. V8 users, you're normally a little bit faster at the list view, so I totally understand why they decided to go ahead and go that route. But kind of coming back down to what we're looking at here. So this is that form view with access to that style grid here. And using the style grid, this is going to go ahead and allow us to order faster, build new items faster, and essentially just set up that single bare bone item for all members of the style, and then just have Retail Pro make the other members itself. All right. And so now I'm going to go ahead and come back to my item view here. We're going to talk about a few other aspects of our more advanced inventory. And, you know, advanced inventory, or the word advanced aside, it's not that scary. There's just a few things. We have our non-inventory items. And so a non-inventory item is something that we want to be able to sell and put on a receipt, but we don't necessarily need to track on hand for it. So a good example for that, at least here in California, is going to be our bags, plastic bags. We now have to go ahead and charge for them, the 10 cents, 15 cents, 20 cents, depending on where you're at. But I really don't expect any of my employees to sit there and count 5,000 bags when they come in. I'm going to trust that, you know, we have around that number, and, you know, we might have a few that are damaged or that get stuck to other ones, so I don't need to track on hand for that. So for that, we would create a bag item and just have it be a non-inventory item. I can sell it as many times as I want, and I don't have to worry about going negative. The other thing that might be helpful is maybe for like a service. If we offer gift wrapping, then we can go ahead and set up a new item, call it gift wrap, and then we would be able to assign it a price and just make it a non-inventory item. All right. And so that's just about it for our non-inventory items. Like I said, that was pretty easy. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about price levels. So price levels, you know, we have a few of them we have the ability to have as many price levels as we need within Retail Pro. Mine is still pretty generic. I just have my retail price as price level 1, but you can, of course, change that in your system preferences. I'm going to just take a little detour and show you guys where that lives. Let me see, and I think we have a question. Give me just 1 second here. Okay, it looks like we have a hand raised for Melissa. Melissa, did you want to go? Did you need to ask a question? I can go ahead and unmute you if you're ready for that. Oh, okay, got it. No problem. So if you do have a question, feel free to go ahead and add it to the questions list. I have that up, and I can go ahead and answer it. Really, anybody, if you have a question as we're moving forward, the raising your hand button is going to go ahead and kind of get my attention, but then that question is going to go ahead and be the way to really ask the question while we're in the middle of the presentation. Other than that, at the end, we will go ahead and I'll open up the mics for whoever needs to or wants to go ahead and participate. But thank you guys so much for being attentive. Let's go ahead and jump back into our local preferences here. And then I'm going to go ahead and jump into my merchandise, pricing, and then general. And then so over here, here's where we can go ahead and change those price level names and then go ahead and add additional price levels. And so it looks like we also do have a question, does non-inventory work for admissions? Does it maintain how many sales of that item? And we can't actually run a report. You would be able to run a sales report for that particular item. And you can do that even from like a receipt journal or just a sales summary. But I would say definitely look at your sales items. And when we're looking at the filter before you actually run the report, we would just filter for that specific item number, ALU, description, whatever is the most distinguishable aspect of that item, which might be the ALU or the item number depending on how you're set up. But yes, absolutely, that is something that you can go ahead and run a report for. You can do that for really any item in your inventory. You can run a report and just see how that item is doing. You can also use something called history within the inventory, and I'll remember to go ahead and take a look at that. But we can look at history to see every time that item was listed on a receipt or in this scenario, the receipt's the most important part. So I'll go ahead and stay back on track with that. We can talk a little bit more about that in a second. I know we got another question as to like what are price levels, and thanks for getting me back. But price levels are going to be ways that Retail Pro can maintain different prices for different reasons. So my price level 1 here, just to make it a little bit more clear, I'm going to call that retail. So that is my everyday price level. But let's say I have a few customers that have wholesaler's license, and so I give them wholesale prices. So I need a price level called wholesale. Oh, let me see. Let's just WS, that works. And so I need another price level or another way of maintaining prices for these specific customers. And I don't want it to affect my retail price level. And let's say I also have employees and they all get 20% off of everything in my store. And I don't have limitations on anything, but they can't get any additional discounts or anything like that. It's just flat 20% on everything. So I might also have an employee price level. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit save on here, and I'll show you how I can go ahead and populate these. But that's a good example of times you might need multiple price levels. Or maybe we're integrated with the web, and we need a promo price level that the web can go ahead and look at. And so we can go ahead and open up a next one by hitting that down arrow and just writing. So you can have as many as you need in Retail Pro. All right, but I'm going to go ahead and save that there. And I'm going to go ahead and hit update. And then we're going to jump into inventory one more time. And so jumping into inventory one more time, I'd like to go ahead and point out down over here, we again have that retail price level now instead of that price level 1 that it once was. And so now that I have those other price levels, I would be able to go ahead and either toggle to my other price levels, or what I'm going to do is I need to populate them first. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is jump into my price manager for just a second. I'm going to adjust prices. So like I said, I just made these, so they don't have anything in them. But I'm going to go ahead and adjust my retail price by subtracting, or let me see, my cost, and then adding an amount. So let's say wholesale is our cost plus 10. So there we go, percentage 10. So cost retail by adding 10%, and I'm going to go ahead and hit adjust. And actually I need to be over to my price manager. And you see, so this is my markdown price for these items. So this is going to be my new wholesale price level, right? So I'm going to go ahead and go with price manager one more time. I'm going to update my markdown, do it now. And then I'm going to adjust my wholesale price level. And I'm going to hit update. And then, yep, I have very few items. 152 sounds about right. Okay, so now my wholesale price level has been updated. And my retail price level has not been affected. So I'm going to go ahead and be able to assign that price level to customers who, have a wholesaler's license. Let's say Liz here has a wholesaler's license. I'm going to jump into form view. And I'm going to come over here into our sales and credit. And then under price level, I'm going to go and assign them wholesale. Save on that. And now, at point of sale, any time that Liz is added to a receipt, it's automatically going to change to that wholesale price level. And my associates at point of sale don't have to worry about remembering to put in any special discounts or anything like that. Say new, and you see I'm looking at price level retail. But then I'm going to put Liz on here, say OK. And now we're looking at price level wholesale. Choose edit items. Let me just throw this guy on here. You see, these are normally very expensive, but the real cost now is going to be our cost plus 10. And there we go. I'm going to be able to go ahead and complete this transaction as normal. They're still going to be taxed as normal, but that's one example of a reason why you might need to go ahead and use price levels. I'm just going to go ahead and discard this receipt. We're going to go ahead and jump back into my inventory here. And so the other thing I want to talk about is going to be our multi-vendor table. And so again, this is going to be a table, so we're going to need to jump into form view to really have access to it. All right, and so you can see that down here, a multi-vendor table. So I've seen this multi-vendor table be used for a lot of really unique and interesting purposes. One such purpose has been that I really like to tell people about is we've seen it used for like assorted sunglasses. So those Sunglass Kiosks where every sunglass is the exact same price, but they all look a little different. And so as a retailer, if they cost me the same and they're priced the same, and I genuinely don't mind if I sell a cat eye versus the square or the aviators. They're just all going to be under assorted glasses, and I don't want to have to retag them. They come with our vendor UPCs. I can go ahead and build one sunglass item, and then I can add multiple UPCs to that item. So any of the vendor UPCs that they have in there, I'll just add them to this one list. And then no matter what gets scanned, my ALU, the multiple UPCs from the vendors, it's going to pull this single item that is going to be my sunglasses. And so like over here, I don't have a proper DCS for this, but let's go ahead and move past that. Supplies. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and say it costs us only $2, but we're selling it for about $7. Pretty healthy margin. And so again, our native ALU is going to be system generated. If we have a global UPC, we can add it there. Or of course, just like I said, continue adding the UPCs here. So what I've seen people do is even scan them directly in. So I'll grab one of my aviators, scan it in. One of my cat eyes, scan it in. One of my rounds, we'll scan those in. And they come in different colors, different shapes, but essentially we just want to make sure that we have all of the UPCs. And again, no matter what gets scanned at point of sale, if I save this here, whether that's this ALU or any of these UPCs, we're going to pull this sunglass item at this price. And it's going to be from that vendor, of course. Alternatively, this is also going to be used when we have our primary vendor and our primary item. So our primary vendor is our vendor AAA Supplies here. Let's say AAA Supplies is completely out of stock, and they tell me they can't get me any more sunglasses until next month, but they've been selling really, really, really well. And so I need them back in, and I find that I can get them from another vendor, but they're going to charge me a slightly higher cost. So let's say my Triple B here. Triple B is going to get it to me, but they're going to charge me $2.25 per unit. And, you know, my customers are used to seeing the $7 price. I'm only ordering it from them this once until I can get my normal shipment in. And so I'm going to accept the slightly smaller margin for these items, and I just need them in my door. And so we're going to go ahead and add that order cost, and then we can go ahead and add the new vendor's UPC. Let's say that they're just sending us one kind of sunglasses, so we have just a really basic, easy job here. And so now, if this UPC gets scanned, it's still going to pull this descriptive information and this price, but Retail Pro will know that this is the real vendor and this is the real cost. And this is especially helpful when you're ordering them. So if we created a purchase order for our vendor BBB, we would still be able to select this item even though the primary vendor is my AAA Supplies. And so that is, that is actually probably the primary use of our multi-vendor table here, so that you can go and order the same item at the same price from different vendors. But like I said, the sunglasses example is a really unique thing that I saw that really benefited that particular client. So hopefully it can benefit a few more people. All right, and the next thing that I'd like to go ahead and talk about is serial and lot numbers. So I will say that there's not a lot of times that you need to absolutely track serial information, but you're going to see that a lot for electronics, bikes, and really depending on the state and your laws, it might be a little bit different. But it is really easy to actually set it up. You essentially, in your system preferences, just need to let Retail Pro know what kind of tracking do you need, whether that's full, which means it's going to ask you for that serial type anytime you touch, or serial number, really anytime you touch the item, or partial, which it's essentially just going to need you to tell the serial number when we're doing really important things like selling it. And so if we come on over here, we can go ahead and actually tell it what serial type it is. And so again, partial or full. And so let's go ahead and say it's going to be partial, and we can go ahead and assign it a serial number when we're actually trying to sell the particular item or when we're trying to receive a particular item. And so partial is a little bit more forgiving than full, but that's all you really have to do in order to go ahead and start tracking serial numbers or asking Retail Pro to ask our associates for the serial numbers. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit save on there for full, and you can see now we have access to our serial numbers button over here. And so here we can actually add the serial numbers in advance, and so that way people can just select them from a drop-down menu via needing to go ahead and scan them in. And so we can go ahead and do that new serial number, and you see that one is opening up that new one for us and giving us a quantity. All right, and the other thing about serial numbers is that it tracks them for you, especially when using the full. So that serial number will be unique, and it will go ahead and not be able to reuse them. It'll go ahead and tell you when it's sold, when it's received, and if it has been transferred. And then just like everywhere else in Retail Pro, if you need a little bit more information or you want to shorten the list, actually, we can go jump into Interface and then Page Manager, and then we can go and edit the document. Right now, Page Manager is giving me that grayed out, and that's because I'm actively trying to go ahead and edit, or I'm actively editing this item still. All right. But other than that, we can go ahead and jump back one more time into our inventory, because there is another thing I want to show you, and it's going to be count sheets. So count sheets have various uses for various reasons. Probably one of the more more widely seen, in my opinion, is going to be just for spot checks and cycle checks if you want to just get a quick double check on some inventory, or even a pick list. If we need to go ahead and ship something out, we want to have our associates assist us with that, we can go ahead and print out a count sheet and use it as a pick list. But to go ahead and show that, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and filter to a specific vendor. I'm going to go ahead and use my AAA here. All right. And so I'm filtering to this specific vendor. I could filter to a specific department or anything like that. I'm going to go ahead and hit print here. And then I can go ahead and print an inventory sheet. Oh, excuse me, it looks like I have the incorrect document right there. So I'm going to go ahead and pause my screen for just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and get the right document in there. I apologize for the delay. Just one moment. All right. All right, so you guys should be viewing my screen one more time, and so we're going to go ahead and print that, and now I have my count sheet there. So I'm going to go ahead and print that count sheet. I'm just going to preview it. And so the other thing I did is, though, this is on my selected record. What I want is all listed records, so it's going to be everything that is currently on the screen. I'm going to go ahead and hit preview. And there we go. And so we have a pretty standard count sheet here. Big Hairy Dog also has a few variations of this, some of them that have barcodes on them. So those are a little bit more helpful for anything that we might need to adjust later, so we can just scan those barcodes in. But here we go. Let's say I'm asking one of my associates to go double check this vendor. I need to wanted to do a quick spot check and make sure that our on-hand quantity is accurate. And so they're going to go ahead and go through and see the on-hand, what they should have, and then we have a spot for their actual count. All right, looks like we do have a question. Oh yeah, that's no problem. And so this particular form, I already have. Big Hairy Dog already has it. And if you are interested in getting this or something similar to this, because like I said, I have a version that has barcodes as well, I can definitely go ahead and send those out to you guys. It's essentially just I just need to drop it into a folder. And to actually show you guys, let me open that up. This is where I got it from originally. And so I have my doc designs, Big Hairy Dog. And so like I said, these are things that we've went ahead and created. And so I have my inventory, and you see there's that count sheet there. So this little RPT file is something that I can definitely email out to everyone or to those interested in. And all you would need to do is drop it into your Retail Pro 9 design, doc design, and then inventory. You would just drop it right in here, and then you'd have access to it in Retail Pro. So if you're interested in grabbing it, please leave me or actually we'll be emailing out a copy of this webinar to everybody. And so I'll go ahead and ask that they also throw in the count sheet. And if you don't need it, feel free to get rid of it. But if you like it, go ahead and feel free to drop it into that Retail Pro 9 design, doc design inventory folder. And if you'd like some help with that, we would be more than happy to help. It really would take just a few clicks to go ahead and get that all set for you guys. All right. And then I'm going to close out of here. No, there we go. All right. And so once you're in Retail Pro, in order to go ahead and use the design that we just put in, you're just going to go ahead and come up, and like I said, you're going to filter to whatever you actually want to print, whether that's a department or a vendor. We're going to hit print, and then it'll be available for you there. You can absolutely rename it. If you have anything that you want to rename it to, I would just rename it over here in that inventory sheet. So you can rename that count sheet just by double clicking it. All right. But like I said, once you have that, it'll be available when you hit print at the very top in your inventory. All right, and now we're getting to the fun part. We're going to go ahead and jump into purchase orders. So I'm going to jump out of RPro inventory. I'm going to go into purchasing and purchase orders. And so there are some places that might actually not use purchase orders. Purchase orders are what we call planning documents. So they are technically not required in order to go ahead and maintain proper inventory levels and just inventory control as a whole. But I would say it's proper workflow, and it does help streamline the process later on, and it does give us access to a little bit more aspects of Retail Pro, such as your SRO, your sold, received, and on order. Without purchase orders, you wouldn't be able to use the on order aspect of that function. But now that we're in purchase orders here, I'm going to go ahead and just start a new one. And so POs in V9 are, the numbers are going to be assigned automatically. But when you put a new one on, it's going to just hold that 0 number for a little bit, because numbers aren't officially assigned until you save the PO. And that is to kind of avoid multiple people trying to save the same PO. So if I open this and it grabbed PO number 10, somebody else opened it and they also grabbed PO number 10, we'd have a conflict when we're trying to save, and whoever got there first would, be fine, but the second person would need to go and change that number. And so that's why it's going to stay at 0. Most importantly, I need to go ahead and put a vendor code on there. And so let's go ahead and let's just say, using my Acme. I think I have a few items for Acme. And then I'm going to go ahead and come on this side and hit OK. All right. And so I am currently limiting my POs to 1 vendor per PO. So there are a few places that might do that a little bit differently, but what I enjoy that it does is that when I go into choose edit items, it's automatically going to pre-filter my inventory. So I don't have to go ahead and look through anything that isn't my ACM vendor. And so that's going to go ahead and allow me, in my opinion, to go ahead and look a little bit more closely, work a little bit more quickly with this. Kind of just going back here, if I just cancel my dot quantity. And so my PO type is going to be the drop ship. We also have the marked for. Marked for is going to be a little bit more used in a multi-store environment, or if we're shipping to perhaps like a warehouse, and it's going to be marked for another location. But I'm going to stick with drop ship. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that that's my store 1 here. All right, my associate is of course going to default to whoever is signed in. I can add additional terms to my PO, and that will go ahead and move over to my voucher. Can add that account number. If I did have the terms and account number listed on the vendor record when I built it, or since then edited it, it would automatically go ahead and pull those onto the PO for me. The other thing I wanted to go ahead and point out is our cancel date. So the cancel date in V9 is essentially you saying, if I don't have it by this date, I don't want to receive it. In fact, don't receive it. And you can actually have the system not receive that particular order, and we'd have to go ahead and send it back. I will say I normally see people allowing receiving after the cancel date, because most of the time our buyers, if it's going to be that late, our buyers are already aware and they've been in contact with the vendor. But it is an option that is available. All right, from there, this bill status, this is going to come more into play once we actually start receiving against this PO. But so now I'm going to go and jump into my choose edit items. And I'm going to go ahead and decide, what am I ordering today? And I love utilizing my dot quantity. So dot quantity is your document quantity. It's referring to whatever document you're currently on. In this case, our PO quantity, our order quantity. And so I'm going to go through and I'm just going to say, I want to order 1 of everything, maybe 2 or 3 of those, 4 of these, and that's it. That's all I'm doing for today. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And it's going to bring all of that information over to my PO. From there, I can have the option of adding additional miscellaneous information or PO instructions. If you have set up PO instructions in your system preferences, they will be available here via a drop-down menu. I don't have any PO instructions set up in system preferences, so that's why there's nothing available, but I can still free type whatever I want. Let me see. Let's call. Please call prior to shipping. Maybe you have a very small receiving area and I need to be ready. All right. From there, I'm going to go ahead and just save this PO. And you see now I've added that PO number 16. All right. And from there, oh, actually, one thing I didn't do. So we pulled existing inventory onto this PO. I'm going to go ahead and jump back into form view. I'm actually going to go ahead and add a brand new item as well. And so again, PO planning document. Retail Pro doesn't care what changes you make to this. We can continue to go ahead and make changes up until when we're ready to receive. And then, oh yes, so we have another question. What if an item price increases? That's a great question. If the price increases, we can definitely go ahead and put that PO price right on the screen here. And so that's not going to affect our price in our inventory just yet. That's going to come later on down the line at the voucher. So here, let's say this particular bath mat is actually going to cost me, or it's actually going to be at a new price and a new cost. So it's going to cost me $5.50, and I'm now going to start charging $13. So I can do this and give my receiving department a heads up down the line without changing my inventory. Because again, this is a planning document. Now my voucher, that will adjust my price in my inventory and adjust my cost in my inventory by averaging it. And so when the voucher comes in, that's when I want to go ahead and be ready to retag any existing merchandise, or if I happen to have been sold out of that particular item, which would be best case scenario for me because that means I don't have to retag anything, then I can just print those new tags at the new price and kind of go on as normal. All right, and then one more question is, can we generate our own PO number? You absolutely can go ahead and assign your own PO number to this. So this was automatically generated as PO number 16. Again, this planning document, you could do whatever you want to this document within reason. But we're going to go ahead and just say ACM, what's today's date? 827. All right. And so this can be both alpha and numeric, whatever makes the most sense to you. I've seen people use this quite often. That way, just kind of looking at the PO number, you know exactly when it was made and who it's for without needing to go ahead and avert your eyes or attention and do other things. But yes, you can absolutely go ahead and assign your own PO number. And you can even do that before you save the PO the first time. So if I were to go and just start a new one here, that's PO number 0, put in whatever I want, and continue the PO as normal. Cancel that for just a second, just so I can go ahead and jump in here. So I'm going to go one more time, choose edit items. And that PO gives us that backdoor into our inventory. So I'm going to go ahead and hit new. And actually, instead of doing a new single item, I think I'm going to show you guys that new style item. We already got a chance to go ahead and look at that item here. Go ahead and close that out. You can see that dot quantity went ahead and was grayed out and is not because this here is an existing item. All right, but let's go ahead and jump into style view. And then I'll ask you guys to forgive me in advance. I'm going to be very, very generic with this particular item. It's going to be another one of those test shirt. All right, but here we go. We're going to go ahead and hit new. All right, and so I need to go ahead and cover my bases, and we're going to go ahead and do, let's do another garden accessories. Yeah, doesn't really matter. Garden accessories, you see, and our vendor code is already filled out for us because, again, we're on a PO, and I am limiting that PO to one vendor per PO. Description 1, this is a gardening accessory, so I'm just going to say a rake, but this rake is going to come in multiple sizes and colors. Let's just say, let me see. All right, garden glove. There we go. And so we can go ahead and assign a scale to this. I have a 1 size scale. So this is going to be my blank size, but it's going to go ahead and give me my attributes, and that's really what I need right now. And so alternatively, I did want to go ahead and show you guys what like a S2XL scale might look like. And so this is a really generic scale that I set up. You know, we can edit it and finesse it a little bit more, but this gives me access to what I consider my most widely used colors or attributes. All right, so I'm going to go back to my 1 size. I'm going to come over here and say that they cost me $3. Price is going to be, let me see, 7. And there we go. And so, of course, we can go ahead and, if we have multiple price levels, we can go ahead and go down here, and we would be able to select those other price levels, wholesale here, and let's just fill that out so that way we don't have to worry about updating that price level later. And so now that I'm going to go ahead and have this available, I'm going to go ahead and say maybe we can have it in red. And because I'm doing this from a PO, where normally in your inventory, you don't want to go ahead and put anything but a 0 in this grid, because putting anything but a 0 is going to go ahead and actually give you on-hand quantity. Because we're on a PO, we can go ahead and put our order quantity in here. So I want to order 3, 3, 3, and maybe the purple as well. And the other colors, I don't carry these gloves in those colors, and that is totally fine. We don't have to go ahead and use the entire scale. And then how to add attributes. I did not go over that just yet, so thank you very much, Melissa. Let me go ahead and show you guys that. And so to edit your attribute and size or add a new attribute to an existing scale, all we have to do is come over here to edit attribute and size, and that's going to open this up for us. And so I can just go ahead and arrow down and open up that new attribute, and I can add that new color. So for this one, maybe I have a multicolor, and I also have a rose. I don't know if that's a color technically, but there we go. We have multi and rose available in our gloves. And then so size as well, I can continue to add different sizes. So maybe it's a 1 size fits most, and then we have a extra large size or something, or extra tiny. And we can go and add those to this. I'm going to hit OK here, and you can see now they're available on my grid. One thing to note is that they now have this little asterisk near them. And that's totally fine. Essentially what that just is telling you is that it's not a native member of this scale. You can still use it. We can still go ahead and put our order quantity in there, and it'll be there permanently once we go ahead and hit save. But that's just your indicator that it's not normally part of this particular scale. We can definitely add it to the scale. Now that we have that saved, you can see we have our scales here. If I were to go ahead and open up my 1 size right there, and if I were to come down and add multi, I can go ahead and hit OK. And you see now my multi is natively part of that scale, but my rose still isn't. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just hit OK on this. And it's going to go ahead and bring me back out here, and I'm going to hit OK one more time. And there we go. And so we can go ahead and see, oh, actually, I don't think I got my secondary. Choose edit item. Didn't actually get my garden glove. All right. My apologies. That might have been just my fault for going back and forth and editing the attribute and size. I might have tripped up Retail Pro a little bit, but I can come in here and add my dot quantities to these. You can see still it did not give me any store on-hand quantities, so that was not affected. So that was just me going out of order and tripping up the system a little bit. All right. But there we go. We have all of these items now listed on this PO. Remember, this PO we started, we stopped, we restarted, we renamed, saved. Again, Retail Pro doesn't mind if you go ahead and do anything to a planning document such as this. All right. And now we can go ahead and come back on out. And so now that exists as my newest PO here. And I just wanted to go ahead and point out a few things. So we have some very helpful little bits of information on our PO screen here. My total cost due, unfilled percent, and my number of line items. Total cost due is going to be, of course, what is still due cost-wise. So what do we owe this vendor for this particular PO? And then the unfilled percent, personally, I wish that they had kind of switched this around a little bit, but unfilled 100%, and that means we have not received any bit of this particular PO. Unfilled 0% means this is a 100% realized complete PO. And in that case, I would say we're going to come over here and I can inactivate this PO. I've done a bad job of keeping this all cleaned up, and that is very important to do, and we'll talk a little bit more about PO maintenance later on. But that's about it for my PO. We've completed it, checked it, double checked it. I like it, so we're going to go ahead and leave it as is. And maybe a few days later, we finally get that product into the store. And so I'm going to come over here to vouchers. And remember, vouchers are our historical document. This is the piece that is mission critical to go ahead and maintain a proper inventory control. I'm going to go ahead and hit new here. And so to reference a PO, all I'm going to do is use this PO number. If I know it, I can just type it in. Of course, off the top of my head, I don't remember what I changed it to, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into my Choose Edit POs. And there we go, that ACM 827. So I'm going to hit OK. And so there we go. It went ahead and will pull any information that you had listed on the PO. And so I didn't have any discount or freight information, so that's still blank right now. Really, the only thing I had on that PO was the PO items and the vendor itself. And so I'm going to come over here to the right and go to my PO items. And here we go. So this opens up what is technically a little bit of an in-between window, and it gives us access to what is on our PO. And so you can see here we have our quantity. So that's our PO quantity, and then stock quantity. Again, now we're on a voucher. So stock quantity now means voucher quantity, the amount that I'm actually receiving in. And so, I can, of course, receive due, and that'll automatically just pull in what was due currently. And then I would always, maybe I'm just a little nervous, but I like to go ahead and double check and just make sure what our vendors say that they're sending us is what is there. And maybe there is a slight difference. Maybe they accidentally only sent us 3. I ordered 4 of this particular bath mat, but that's all right. We can make that edit here. And then the rest of these look good. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. All right, now that they're here, they've changed the wording has changed a little bit. So we have our quantity received was that dot quantity, and then original quantity is going to be that PO quantity. All right, and so we can see most of these match. Our original quantity on one of them should have been a little different. I'm just missing that particular item. But ultimately, if we did go ahead and make that mistake, or if we didn't catch that the quantities were off until we reached this point, that's totally fine. You can still go ahead and edit our received quantities. So maybe I thought I saw a small in there, but I really didn't. What I saw was 2 mediums, but I caught it. I caught it before we updated our voucher. So I can go ahead and say a 0 there, come on down, and add the 2 here. And so that's going to go ahead and change my voucher total if you guys saw that. And it did come back up because they are the same cost. But that's just something I wanted to go ahead and point out, that it does go ahead and change those numbers on the fly as you're editing that received quantity. And so we've made that last catch. We're almost done with this particular voucher, so this is actually what we're vouchering in. And let's say that they had a little bit of freight as well. So they came with a $10 freight charge. And so if you're tracking freight separately, it's totally fine, so leave it as is. There are some locations, some stores that decide that they just want their freight to be, or they want their items to absorb that cost, and we're not going to go ahead and track it separately. And so to do that, I'm going to go ahead and come over here to spread cost, and I'm going to go ahead and select freight. I'm going to hit OK. And see, now that changes to 0, but now all of my voucher costs have gone up just a bit, of course, except for that 0 item, but everything else has gone up just a bit, and our total has gone up. I can come over here and unspread that cost. Maybe it makes more sense to keep our freight separate, but in addition, we also had a little bit of a discount here. They gave us a 10% discount on this particular order, and so now I can go ahead and spread just the discount and leave the freight separate. And spread cost, yes, you guys would be able to go ahead and spread the cost on a PO as well. Yes. And so I can go ahead and update this. Modify inventory prices. Yes, I'm going to go ahead and let that affect my price. Inventory will be updated. Continue. Yes. So it's going to be a yes to both of those because I want my price to go ahead and reflect this new price. You know, like I said, if I was not out of stock, then I'm ready to retag those other items. If I am out of stock, then I'm just tagging the new items with the new prices. I'll print the tags from my voucher. I'm just going to go ahead and jump back into POs for just a moment. I wanted to go ahead and show you this PO that we received. Total cost due is still 5, and my percent unfilled is 6%. So I'm still waiting on an item for this. And that's going to be that item, that small bath mat that we're supposed to go ahead and get. And then over here, you can see quantity is actually a negative quantity because we received too much of that medium. We actually only ordered the 1, but we got the 2. And you know, and in that case, maybe we called our vendor, let them know, but we wanted to keep the medium anyway. So it was fine. We vouchered that in, no problem. But I can go ahead and just do a new one really quick. I'm going to go ahead and just throw an item on there. A little out of order because I should put my vendor in there first, but now I know what vendor I'm going to use. All right, you see, and that actually pulled that vendor for me because again, we can't go ahead and we can't actually go ahead and have multiple vendors on one particular item. And so we can go ahead and enter that information here, and that's going to go ahead and change our PO total. Let me go ahead and do menu designer. Oh, and actually, I might have misspoke. I apologize. So it looks like, unfortunately, I can't get to that final aspect of spreading. You can put the freight on there and put the discounts on there, but that final step of spreading does need to go ahead and come on the voucher level. I apologize. I misremembered that particular aspect, but you can set it up in advance and put in that freight and put in that discount. I did have a question from, let me see, from Julie. So sorry about that, Julie. So you can go ahead and get it set up, but that final spread does need to go ahead and happen on the voucher. All right, so I'm going to cancel out of here. Come back out. All right, and then just one more thing on our vouchers over here that I wanted to go ahead and mention is corrections to a voucher. So let's say for the voucher that we just went ahead and handled, maybe I made a little bit of a double mistake. So we did have the small, and the medium was actually just the 1, and we actually had one of the small. So this was my quantity mistake that I made. And so in order to go ahead and correct this, in my opinion, one of the easiest things to do is I'm going to reverse this voucher. So I'm going to go ahead and look at this voucher here. I'm going to hit reverse. And then comment. So that was on my comment 1 that was pulled from my PO. I can go ahead and leave that as is if we want to go ahead and leave that there, but I can add mistake on quantity. or we can say quantity correction or anything like that. All right, so you see now that first one is reversed. The sister record to that is going to be this one for our reversing. That is a return type voucher. From there, I can go ahead and get my original one that we received. I can copy it. And when I copy it, then I can go ahead and come in and correct these quantities. So that's just going to be a 1, and that is going to be a 1. And perfect. Other than that, everything else is still the same. We're going to go ahead and be able to, you know, I mean, we don't need to change anything. So that reference PO there, I can go ahead and unspread that discount at this point if I wanted to, or leave it spread. And now I can go ahead and hit update only with those corrections made. Or of course, print and update if you print your vouchers. Inventory will be updated. Yes, continue. And so now we have that regular document there. And so there is, now we're all set. Our inventory is correct. Our quantities are correct. And now if I go back to that purchase order, you can see over here, now my unfilled percent went down a little bit to unfilled percent 3%, about 3.13%. And come on over here, back to our PO details. So that was because down over here, remember that one that we changed right before that initial screen, right before we pulled it into the voucher screen anyways. And so we did change that. And so that's the only thing that's due on that particular PO. And maybe we're okay with that. Maybe we're okay, we talked to our vendor and we're not actually going to go ahead and need that item, but we did manage to go ahead and correct what we do have. And so our inventory currently is accurate and good. And so now I can come in here and inactivate this particular PO, again, to go ahead and keep my POs clean. And the next time that I need to go ahead and go in and search for POs, I don't have to search for really old POs, or I don't, especially if I want to go ahead and have the liberty of assigning my own PO numbers to avoid those, oh, this PO number already exists. You have duplicate PO numbers. So we're just going to go ahead and inactivate and keep it really clean. And like I said, maybe try to make them as unique as possible if we're using our own. Okay, and yeah, we have a quick question on our price increase for a voucher. Okay, so purchasing, I'm going to jump into a voucher one more time. And so when you update a voucher or you create a voucher, those are our historical documents. They're what actually affect your inventory. And so I'm going to go ahead and just start a new one, and this is going to be just a brand new voucher. I'm not going to go ahead and reference a PO. Like I said, POs, although best practice to go ahead and work through them and help streamline the process, are not required. So I can go ahead and enter a vendor code here, and let's just go ahead and say Acme vendor again. All right, we're going to go choose edit items. Okay, and so let's take a look at the garden glove that I just made. So the price is $7. And let me see, do I have store on hand? I do. I have 3 on hand at the moment. And let's say these new ones that I got, there was a price increase, 25-cent price increase, cost increase, and therefore I don't want to go ahead and lose my margin on that, so I'm going to increase the price. So if I increase the price on the voucher, I need to go ahead and be aware that I do have on-hand quantity that is probably tagged on my floor. And I need to be ready to go ahead and change those tags, because those tags probably have our printed price on them, and they're going to be the old price. So when they scan at point of sale, they're still using the same barcode, because we're not changing any barcodes or anything, and they'll still pull this item, but it'll pull it at the new price. So let me go ahead and hit OK here. And let's go ahead and come over here to my voucher price. So my voucher price is going to be the $7.25. Over here, we're just going to go ahead and change that up to $3. And maybe it costs us $3. All right, and so I'm going to go ahead and receive this one in. I'm going to go ahead and update only. Modify inventory prices. So do I want to modify these inventory prices? The answer is yes. And now all prices or all the items in my inventory are going to be, or not all items, but this particular item is going to go up that 25 cents. and so I need to retag those items. If I say no, then my inventory price will not change. It's going to stay at the $7. My margin will shrink, but I don't have to retag, so there's a little bit of a give and take with that. And so, that's why we want to go ahead and be aware of cost increase and price increases. And hopefully our vendors are doing their due diligence and letting us know anytime that comes up. And that's, again, a good way of keeping things in order. And the other thing, if you're using vendor invoices, so I'm going to cancel out of this right now. If you're using vendor invoices, your vendor invoice amount and your voucher total have to match in order for them to go ahead and get pulled over to Account Link. And so that's the accounting interface for QuickBooks within and Retail Pro. And so they have to match. And so if your vendor ups your price and your cost, or ups your cost without telling you, we're going to have to go ahead and adjust our PO or adjust our voucher cost in order to go ahead and make that match. So that's just something to go ahead and keep in mind for those who have QuickBooks accounting and the Account Link software. Vendor invoices and your voucher total need to match. So we really, really do need to be aware of when our vendors plan on increasing the price on us, or increasing our cost. But now here's the update only. I do want this to affect my inventory prices. Inventory will be updated. I'm going to say OK. Form view. And just because I didn't go ahead and mention it a second ago, I do want to go ahead and remind people that you can go ahead and print tags via a voucher or a former voucher. You just have to be highlighted on the item. Especially with one item, it can look like you're highlighted on it, form view, but you see I actually don't have access to my print tags. You have to click into it, and then we can actually print our tags. Okay, but now I wanted to go ahead and take this ALU. Come on over here. Receipts. And I'm going to go ahead and start a new receipt. Under my lookup, I'm going to just scan that in. And you see it comes up at that new price because we had our voucher update our prices. And so again, if this item was just on the floor, and on the floor the tag says that it's $7, they bring it up to the register, our price in inventory is actually $7.25. And so we just have to be aware of that to avoid it. And of course, with the proper permissions, our associates would be able to go ahead and edit that receipt price and give them a discount sale. And it would give that 3.45% discount for our customers, so we can go ahead and make them happy, and kind of then we know to go ahead and correct those tags that are out on the floor. All right. All right, and then we have one more question for a voucher that might have items that use different size tags. And so with that, if we go ahead and jump back into our voucher here, I'm going to use my first voucher that has a few more items. And so if you have quite a few of them, this might not be as reasonable. You might want to actually go to your inventory and then filter for those items and print them from your inventory. But let's say that you want to go ahead and do most of them, or maybe we only have a few items on this. You can go ahead and print tags like our basic here. And then you can have it for selected record, and that way you can have a little bit more control, and you can go ahead and do the document quantity. So that means for this particular one, it would just print the one. It would print one bath mat tag because we have one as our document quantity. Whereas if we were highlighted on this first black bath mat, it would print 3 for us. So that selected record might be helpful. But like I said, if like we had to do every single bath mat, and then our garden gloves were a little bit different. In that case, I might say the easiest way is actually going to be from our inventory. So actually moving on over here, filtering to that particular style, and then let's go ahead and say that was all right. And then so if I wanted to say bath, and then I can go ahead and print tags for this specific style only, and we can do on-hand quantity, or you can go ahead and do a specific quantity as well. All right, and then I think we have one more question. All right, actually, I think that was I hope that went ahead and answered your question. It looks like David has his hand raised. It looks like he might have also given us a question here. Let's see. And this one is going to be for allocation. And yes, you can go ahead and set up allocation patterns for different locations. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at that. All right, just a moment here. All right, sorry people, it seems I'm losing connection for just a moment. I hope everyone can still hear me. Just a second. Okay, I think we're back. You guys should be able to see my cruiser moving around. Okay, and then we have one more question from David. All right, we can. Got it. Sorry about that, David. I was taking a look at a few of the questions that you were asking over here. And so with that, it looks like we might actually want to go ahead and if you have the time, schedule some time with a trainer to go ahead and go over it. Because if you have it set up already, we just need to switch around the ordering. That might be something we'd actually want to go ahead and dial into your system and really get an understanding of what you want it to actually do and then help you out through that. And so if you're interested, I can definitely have our service department reach out to you, and that way we can go ahead and schedule like a relatively short kind of little mini training. Awesome. So I'll go ahead and get that set for you. Thanks so much. And it looks like Julie also go ahead and mention about highlighting multiple items on a voucher. And thank you very much for mentioning that, Julie. So on a voucher, I know that was something that was available in an earlier version of Retail Pro, and I want to say I had trouble with it relatively recently. But let's go ahead and work on that here. Perfect. Actually, it looks like it might go ahead and still be functional. I might have just not been holding down that shift button, which is what I'm doing now. Tag. All right. Selected record. If I preview this. Yeah. Perfect. And so that was working out for me just fine. So thank you so much for mentioning that, Julie. Like I said, I was having difficulty with the functionality, so I was a little bit concerned about it, but trying it right now, it worked just fine. So I'm holding down that shift button, and I'm just going ahead and clicking on the ones that I want to go ahead and print. And then we're still utilizing that print selected record, but now we have multiple selected. So that's going to go ahead and be a very easy way to go ahead and get around that on a voucher. So thank you very much. All right, it looks like we got one more question, and then I'm going to go ahead and take a slight pause for the questions just to go ahead and get our clean house set up and then talk a little bit more about PO maintenance. Just a moment. All right, no, it just might be my a little bit of a lag on my question notification here. So I think we're all right. We're all set up. And if you do have a question and I haven't answered it just yet, please give my notifications just a moment because I do see that there is maybe something coming in. I'm just not seeing it just yet. All right. So we're going to go ahead and jump down over here to Clean House. And so I did mention, actually I might not have mentioned, I was just on another training. We were going through this exact same inventory section. But Retail Pro v9 does not like deleting things. And it does not like deleting things because it is an open relational database. So what that means is that it it's essentially when it saves like a receipt or a voucher, it's not necessarily saving all of that detailed item information on that historical document. What it's saving on that historical document is the system identifier for that item, the SID. And so when we need to pull up that receipt, Retail Pro takes that SID and goes and looks in its directory, in its index, and it will find that item and then pull all of the information. So the item has to exist somewhere in the inventory, whether that be inactivated or not, but it has to exist in order for us to be able to do that. And so although Retail Pro does not like deleting things, we can go ahead and clean house on items that don't have any on-hand quantity and are not otherwise committed. And so let's go ahead and go on into my clean house. So one thing, I want to go ahead and jump into clean house right over here. And so if you see it in here, then there's a high chance that we haven't really touched it. We don't have any on hand for it. For sure, we don't have on hand for it. We can filter this, though, to get a little bit more specific. And so, for example, if I only wanted to look at this particular vendor, or if I only wanted to look at this vendor and jumping into my filter design, coming on down to, actually, let's do last date on hand. No, let's go a little bit further down. Last sold date. I'm going to right click back into criteria. And so maybe I want to see all of these vendors' items, but if they have the last sold date outside of a certain area. So last sold date anywhere, you see, outside of year to date. Exclude. So if they have been sold this year and they're in this vendor, don't show me. I only want to see things that haven't sold this year and that are from this vendor. So if I hit OK, I have one item. This one item I am free to go ahead and delete. And so I can go ahead and mark this item, and I can go ahead and then clean house on it. Now I want to go ahead and just take a quick detour. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of pause this for a second, jump into my inventory. And so if I go ahead and CSA, and so over here you can see all of these items are actually from that vendor, and not all of them have a last sale date, but they do have on hand. So a lot of these have been, fictitious things that I've created and received, but haven't ever sold. I've probably really only done maybe 3 sales transactions, but this is the only item who has 0 on hand and is not otherwise committed. You can actually see this one has 0 on hand. I check out my committed, but I have it on a PO. So again, it's not going to go ahead and qualify for my clean house. This guy over here, very similar. Actually, I might not have it on this particular store. Store 1, looks like I'm not having anything there. So maybe this one, last sale date's probably within that range that I was looking for in clean house. So come on down here and jump back into clean house one more time. All right, and so one more time, I'm going to go ahead and jump into filtered view. I'm going to run this same one. We're going to hit OK. And there we go. And so clean house is probably not something you're going to use every day, but it is going to be extremely helpful when you need to trim down, especially extremely old inventory or things that you're just not going to go ahead and carry anymore, especially if you start to notice that there's a big lag, or if your backups start to take just an extremely long time to run, it might be a time to go ahead and take a look at what we can start trimming down. All right, and so in order to do this, I'm just going to go ahead and mark it. And so I can also use my little mark button over here, and so I can select, unselect, or select all. And of course, that select all is going to be very helpful if we have quite the list of items that fit within all of our criteria. But once we have that, then I'm going to go ahead and just hit clean, and clean process complete. And that's about it. Now that item no longer exists within my inventory, even in my inactive items. All right. And so we went ahead and touched on clean house just a little bit. And so the only other thing that I have left on my list is just a little bit more talk about PO and SO maintenance. And so again, PO maintenance is essentially us coming into these POs and cleaning it up. Because we can have these here, and you see all of the ones that are total cost you zero, unfilled zero. It doesn't matter how long they're here, they're always going to stay here unless somebody takes that next step of coming in here and making them inactive. Now, there are reasons why you might want to hold on to a PO. I definitely have a few people who know that they order the same exact thing from the same vendor, and we do it every single week. You can set your watch by it, and so instead of building a brand new PO every single week, they go ahead and just continue to receive off of the same PO. And that, is fine, saves you some time, doable. But just be aware that you do lose a little bit of reporting information. If you don't also, when you do that, go ahead and update your order date and all that other stuff. So one way to kind of get around that I've seen is that you can inactivate a PO. Before you inactivate the PO, we can go ahead and make a copy of it. So if this is the PO that I know, I'm going to order again, and I really want to go ahead and continue using it, I can just copy this one. And now I have that exact PO with the updated order date. I can, of course, come down here, update my ship date, and then I can go ahead and continue and save this as normal. And so I can go ahead and I'm actually just going to hit save on that. And so now that's created. So I can go ahead and come on down here, and I can inactivate this original one. So if I inactivate that, and now I can go ahead and form view, and now this is my ready, completely active PO that I can go ahead and receive a voucher from. And so that's really my soapbox. I'll go ahead and jump off the soapbox and ask, and if anybody have any additional questions that they'd like to ask, or if anybody is willing, I can definitely go ahead and unmute you if you have a few seconds and you wanted to ask a lengthier question. All right, and so it looks like I have a few people that had raised their hands, and so I just wanted to go ahead and double check, see if you guys got your questions answered, if you wanted me to touch on anything else, and so I'll go ahead and mute myself for a little bit, and if you do have any questions, or you would like to go ahead and be put or be taken off of mute, please let me know via a question, and I'll see the pop-up. Perfect. And we have a question. And so what is the purpose of inactivating POs? And so the purpose of inactivating POs is to keep your PO screen as clean and as neat as possible. And because they don't actually clean themselves up, and so they start to build, and they can go ahead and just be kind of in the way at some point. And then, of course, we do also have the option of purging them from the database using Tech Toolkit. And when we purge them, that will go ahead and free up a lot of space. But with the purge, we tend to want to purge our inactive POs. And so if we haven't inactivated any of them, if they're all still active, then we would have to, at that point, go ahead and do that second part of it. And so it gives you a little bit more work to do later on down the line. It's essentially just to try to go ahead and preemptively keep things as neat as possible for that time that we do have to go ahead and do those larger cleanups. It saves us a little bit more time. And then we have another question. So you can clean house for items. How about vendors or no longer existing categories / editing categories? And yes, so you can definitely go ahead and inactivate and delete departments and vendors if you're not going to go ahead and use them. With departments, there occasionally we make the decision that we're not necessarily not going to use that department, but we're going in a different direction, or we need the department split out a little bit differently. And so in that case, both departments, your old and your new, would exist simultaneously. And then we would go ahead and essentially move those items from our department A that we will be inactivating, and then we can move it over to our department B and inactivate that. And again, so we are inactivating first because of that open relational database. Retail Pro does need to hang on to some information for a while, just to make sure that we don't actually need it. But once it's been a little bit and you're ready to go ahead and again do some bigger cleanups to your database, we are more than happy to help you. But you can also go ahead and go into Technician's Toolkit and go ahead and do a little bit of cleanup and purging. And so I'm going to go ahead and take a moment. We're going to jump into Tool and Tech Toolkit here. And just a second, sorry y'all, my questions are, all right, perfect. And so over here, down here under data maintenance, I want to make sure you guys can still see. Okay, perfect. So down here under data maintenance, we have a few things that speak to archiving and purging. And so it takes a minute to go and open up. So this fits on one page now. Right? This all fits on. It's been a while since I've opened up my tech toolkit. All right, and so we can do that for all of those things, those purchase orders, historical documents, and essentially we just need to go ahead and make sure that we include it, and we have to go ahead and give it some kind of limitations. So are we going to archive and purge? Are we purging only? What are we including in that, whether that's pending, ASN vouchers, and then again, active purge, show periods. And so we can go ahead and define our periods as to when we can purge and archive. Sorry, I keep saying active. Again, you can go and also do that with customers. And then the nice thing is for, in reference to our department, which is, I'm sorry, what I assumed you meant by categories, but you know what they say about assuming, so please let me know if I'm wrong. So the nice thing with like departments and vendors is that if we do get that chance to move all of the items to a new department, then when you delete it, Retail Pro will actually tell you there is nothing assigned to this. Do you want to delete it? And you can say yes there. So you actually don't have to go ahead and purge it at that point. If it's not assigned to anything in Retail Pro and we hit inactivate, Retail Pro is smart enough to see that there's nothing assigned and then offer you the option to just delete versus inactivating. And so, cleaning up at that point might take a few steps, but we're always here for you if you ever want to just even chat with one of us in regards to kind of best practices, and of course, helping you go through it in general. Because there's also a lot that we can go ahead and do and clean up using SQL Shell. And so a few of you have seen this, but this is how we go ahead and this is how we're able to go ahead and touch the database directly. And here is where we can tell it anywhere where you see this department, I need you to make it this department, go. And it'll do it for all items within that department. You just have to kind of know the verbiage a little bit. It's not necessarily dangerous, but it is quick and powerful, and you just have to kind of know what you're doing with that. And so I would say, unless you're well versed in SQL Shell, just remember that we're here and we're ready to help. And so let me go ahead and see if I have any other questions so far. All right, so no questions so far. And just to be clear, I wanted to mention that it's the same for vendors. So if those vendors aren't listed anywhere and we have them removed, then we can just delete them. But if they are listed on historical documents and we need them for a while, we're going to keep them for while we need them. And then once we're ready to go ahead and let go of our older data, then we can go ahead and purge them out of Tech Toolkit and kind of clean up our inventory a little bit. All right, and do we have any other questions so far? All right. I don't see any questions coming in just yet. So I want to thank you all for joining me on this webinar. I'll be sending out we will be sending out this video as soon as we can here. It does take a minute to go ahead and process, so you might not see it today. In addition to that, I'm going to try to go ahead and make sure that everyone also gets a copy of that count sheet. And of course, if you don't need it, feel free to leave it. And if you need some help putting it in, just give us a call and we will go ahead and help you out. And David, I will be going letting our service department know to go ahead and reach out to you in regards to setting up a quick appointment. And other than that, like I said, I'll be hanging out for a minute longer if anybody has any additional questions. Other than that, again, thank you guys so much and have a great rest of your day. All right, so I'm going to be ending the meeting for us here. Thank you all again very much for joining us. And again, we'll go ahead and be sending out the video for this as soon as we can. You have a great rest of your day. Bye.